hope you're really well. Sorry about the delay. I was having some technical issues. And turns out that I can't go live on my phone. So that's very exciting. Hi Bailey, hope you're well. Thanks so much for waiting. Today's guest is amazing. I can't wait to introduce you to her all the way from New York City. If you've got any questions, by the way, for Chloe, please drop them in the comments because I'd love to get as many answers for you guys as possible. I'm going to give you a little bit of introduction on Chloe while I'm just waiting for her to join. She is originally from London, UK. That's where I met her. I originally met Chloe, gosh, over 2 decades ago, where we were in a dance troupe together. We were in a dance company. And but Chloe's actually been, hi Molly, Chloe's been living in the US for the past 10 years and she's appeared on Broadway in the original cast of King Kong, Tuck Everlasting, and as well as the original Chicago company of Hamilton and the national tour of In the Heights. She was also seen in New York City in American Dance Machine for the 21st Century as a solo singer, and most recently as a soloist in the Four Seasons for the Chase Brock Experience Dance Company. Without further ado, obviously she's been in the West End and she's done loads of other things. So I'm going to introduce you to her now. This is so exciting. So guys, if you've got any questions for Chloe, by the way, just please pop them in the chat and we'll ask them.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Oh my goodness, I cannot believe I was just telling everyone that it's been about 2 decades.
It's been a long time.
Been a long time. How are you?
I'm doing all right, yeah.
Yeah. And you've just, so I'm obviously going to take everyone right back to the beginning of your journey, but I've seen that you've had a beautiful baby girl, Campbell.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know, it's crazy.
So this is like in the last 6 months or something?
She's nearly 8 months now.
Amazing, amazing. I know a lot of people are joining because obviously your credits just speak for themselves. It's incredible that you're now in New York City. Like, how did this happen?
It's so weird. It's so weird. Yeah.
So let's go back right to the beginning because you and I obviously met. Oh, actually, we met at iDance on it was a workshop. It was pre-Culture Shock, and we did a workshop with. Who was the guest choreographer?
Oh gosh, I mean,
was it Juan?
My memory is terrible. I'm trying to
I don't know if it was like Juan Carlos or something.
I could not tell you. I remember Gabriel. Is that his name? Gabriel?
Oh yeah, I remember Gabe. Yeah,
and then
yeah.
Patrick. I'm like trying to think of who else.
There were just so many. And so basically I did like a dance workshop with Chloe in Watford. And I have to tell you this, Chloe, and I think I've told you years ago, but I remember there was a dance to Jessica Simpson's Irresistible. I mean, you probably won't remember it, but I remember it because it's such a vivid memory, because I just remember watching you on stage from the wings, because you'd be like, Irresistible. And I was like, that girl, like, because I wasn't really a dancer at that stage. I was like at the beginning of my little journey. And I just remember like watching you going, oh my God, this girl has got something that you just can't take your eyes off her. Honestly, it's so vivid, and it's like 25 years ago, but it's true. So obviously when I met you, you were a dancer. I know we did the whole Culture Shock thing, but then you went to Millennium. So let's go back a little bit, because I never knew you were kind of musical theatre led. I don't know if you were.
Yeah, it's so funny because I was always like, all I ever wanted to do was musicals from when I was little. I used to watch like all the films. I had all the videos back when it was videos stacked up.
Yeah.
And I had this like, I had them stacked up in a pile and I would just go through them all. And then when I got to the end of the pile, I'd just start again and go back through all of them again. My brother obviously hated it because he's 5 years older than me and made me watch Alien and stuff like that. Yeah, so I've always wanted to do musicals, but then when I went to college to do my A-levels, I kind of got more into hip hop, just because of there were people in the college, you know, Simeon and Kim, we all went to Richmond College together. So I kind of got more into hip hop then. And so it was when, because I was doing my A-levels, I kind of stopped. I would go to a dance school, but I kind of stopped going to that dance school as much because I didn't really have time. But I started doing hip hop more. So yeah, it's really funny because that was never my thing. But I guess when I met you and I started Culture Shock, is I was doing a lot of hip hop. So going to Millennium was kind of always my trajectory. But I kind of had a little like side step from 16 to 18.
Yeah, fab. Yeah. So was Millennium like the first place you auditioned? Was that?
No,
because it was quite new, wasn't it?
It was Millennium was really new. My dream had always been to go to London Studio Centre. That's like where I wanted to go. Yeah, so anyone that is aspiring to go to dance colleges, just know that, like, you know, there's many different paths, and just because one path doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. And it was actually a huge blessing that I ended up going to Millennium, because it kind of, I met Stephen Mear, who's a really well-known choreographer and that I worked with a lot through Millennium. Yeah, so it's crazy. But basically, I auditioned for London Studio Centre. I auditioned for, I think, Doreen Birds, and then I went to this dance school at the time where his name's Gareth Walker. He had this dance school and it was amazing. Like, it was so hardcore, so good. But he's the one that told me about Millennium, because he went to London Studio Centre, and then three of the teachers broke off and formed their own dance college, which was called Millennium, and they were the directors. And he's like, it's new, but it's really good, you should audition for it. So it was like it was a last minute audition. I wasn't even going to go, and I was just like, okay, I'll just try this one out. Anyway, I ended up loving like the vibe and the feeling at Millennium, and it was really, really small. When I went there was only 100 in the whole college. So it was like, it was really cool. And also the classes were based off your level rather than your year. So I was in, my classes were with third years and second years as well, which was really cool because it really...
Great.
Anyway, so basically I couldn't really go to college unless I got a scholarship, because we just couldn't afford it. It's so expensive. And I really wanted to go to London Studio. I got in, but I didn't get a scholarship. I didn't get into Doreen Bird at all. And then I got into Millennium with a scholarship. So I was like, I mean, when I got the letter about London Studio, I was devastated, but it's fine. You know, everything happens for a reason. And then I got into Millennium with a scholarship. So I was like, okay, I'm going there. And I actually loved it when I went there for the audition. So I was like, okay, this is where I'm going. Yeah. And that's what happened. And,
amazing. I think did Andy get into
Andy Instone. No, I think he was the year below me. No, he was in my year. He was totally in my year.
I think you went the same time, because you both just kind of left Culture Shock.
Yeah, because I think maybe I told him about it. He was like, oh yeah, that's something I could do. So yeah.
And he did. Yeah. And so were you predominantly a dancer? Like, had you done loads of vocal and acting classes, or you just mainly dance focused?
I did singing when I was younger. Like, I did singing lessons just because our dance school that I went to, like, people did singing lessons as well. But I was always a dancer first. And then I kind of didn't do a lot of singing for a long time. And at Millennium, the only thing I wished is that I'd had a bigger focus on singing, because it was very dance focused at the time. And if you were a singer, then like great, and if you weren't, like they were really good. In our singing lessons, we kind of focused more on like the acting, like in the singing and stuff, and we did a bit of technique. But moving to America, they really are on it with the singing. Like, it's very different here when it comes to training. Like, everyone can sight read. You know, literally, I remember the first time I had a rehearsal for the first job I got here, and everyone got the music and everyone just started singing it, and everyone was sight reading, and I literally was like, I can't sight read. Like, it was insane. We got told what harmonies we were doing, and everyone just started singing their harmonies, and I was so lost, because that's kind of not how we'd done it for musicals I'd done back home. So I was just like, oh my gosh.
Oh my God. I was going to actually come to that, like, in the differences of the two sort of the industries in both worlds. So let's just go go from Millennium. So you graduated. How sort of quickly did things work for you or not? Did you get an agent? Was there a certain
Yeah,
direction?
I was very lucky that I actually got my first job in my third year at college. Yeah, I
Great.
was.
What was
It
it?
was On the Town that Steve and Mia choreographed, and me and one of my friends, Liam, we both got it. We hadn't been allowed, so at some colleges you're allowed to audition for shows while you're at college, but our college, they didn't really allow that because they didn't want you to they didn't want you to take away from training. So basically we weren't allowed to audition for any shows. However, On the Town was with the English National Opera, so it was only like a few shows a week, so we could still be at college. It wasn't like we weren't going to be at college at all. So they let us audition for it.
I saw that production, FYI, and I probably saw you in it. And then I was probably like, read it and gone, oh my God, there's Chloe.
Yeah.
But I think I was like, I can't go to the stage door and be like, hi.
You
I'll just be really cool. I think I messaged you. I did message you because I loved that production. I just thought it was fab anyway, but so good.
I can't believe I got to do that. I was so shy. Me and my friend were like the shyest. We sat in the corner just like, which is hilarious because I'm not a shy person, but you know, I was just kind of taking everything in. I even remember the audition. We were just both like, we went in and obviously everyone knows everyone, but we were just like sat in the corner like, oh my gosh, and everyone's chatting to everyone. I remember going in for the singing part and like everyone could hear, like you could hear everyone singing because obviously you just go into the room and I'm like freaking out like, oh my God, it was, but yeah, so that was my first job. And it was amazing and a massive eye opener. It was, there were 20 in the ensemble, so 10 women, 10 men. And it was just like really cool to learn so much from watching other people. And Caroline O'Connor, who is, I think, like an absolute star.
Oh my God, iconic.
To get to do
just
my first
amazing.
job with her and just watch how she works was incredible as well.
Great. And then, so you did that. When did you do So You Think You Can Dance? Because that was the first series,
that was
it?
Yeah, that was the first season. That was in 2011. No, yeah, I think it was or 2010. But it was after, so I went to New York just to study at a studio called Broadway Dance Center. So I went to New York in 2009 and I ended up staying for 8 months. And then I came back and then that's when I did So You Think You Can Dance.
Right, okay. So what happened between that time on the town? Was it kind of job after job, or did you kind of just have a bit of a moment?
It was on and off. I would say I never had a problem with like doing a regular job in between. So I'm very lucky that I'm from London. So I lived at home. So, you know, I wasn't paying rent or anything, which obviously when I moved to New York, it's like a completely different story. You're working like 1,000 jobs, you're hustling and trying to make money. So like I didn't have to pay rent, but I mean, I never asked my mum for anything. But I always got like a regular job. So I would work front of house. And I actually really enjoyed working front of house, especially when I just left college, because I feel like I learned so much from watching people in shows. So I like, you know, there's like the things to do and the things to not do. And I just feel like I really learned a lot from seeing how people perform. And especially when it's 8 shows a week, you see who holds it together and who doesn't hold it together.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, and like you really do notice. So I think that like stayed ingrained in me always. You know, that is really important and someone's always watching you and you can't just be like reeling it in or not care as much just because it's a matinee or whatever, you know.
And it's always the audience's first time generally
exactly.
that they've seen the show. So yeah, I get that.
But I really did learn a lot. I worked at Wicked Front of House for a while, which like, I mean, I was obsessed with that show. It's so good.
Yes.
That's what I did in between shows, but I did pretty well. I did Mary Poppins after. I did a panto and then I did Mary Poppins for 7 months. And then I think, what else did I do? I did
Desperately Seeking Susan.
And then I did,
Oh.
what else?
Desperately
Yeah, I
Seeking
did
Susan,
Desperate
you did
Seeking
that?
Susan. I did a tour of our house. I think I did another panto at some point. Yeah, and I definitely had down times where I didn't work. So, you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the choice to go to New York, was this always like on the cards, one day I want to conquer Broadway, or you just
No,
thought,
it's
I've got a
really
gap, let's
funny because
go?
I talked to my friends about it being here. And can you believe this year I've been here for 10 years? Like
No, I can't. I mean, it's just crazy.
May, I can't believe I'll have been here for 10 years. It's just nuts. But it's funny because it was actually never in my plan. I don't think I was ever like, oh, I want to like move to New York and that's like my dream. My dream was always just to make it on the West End. Like that was massive for me. And so, yeah, I guess I never really thought about it because I honestly didn't even think there was a way that I could do that. So basically, I went and I studied at Broadway Dance Center for 8 months. And when I was there, that's when I was like, oh my gosh, I was just like so inspired by like at the open dance classes, because everyone would go to the open dance class. There'd be people that were in Broadway shows would go. I think it's like a different atmosphere to how class was in London. And so I just like had all this new energy and people always creating things, and they were always doing like, you know, people would be like, oh, do you want to be in this piece that I'm doing? You know, I feel like there was just like another level of like, I want to create things. I don't know, I just feel like there's like more going on. It was just a new energy, and I kind of felt like I was getting a bit bored in London, and I just loved the energy there. And so it had never really occurred to me that I could even move to America. And basically I saw that people were getting these artist visas, and I was like, oh, what's an artist visa? Because obviously there were a lot of international students doing the course I was doing. So then I looked into this artist visa, and I was like, oh, I can actually move here and work here. So then I kind of went down that road and looked into all of that.
Right, this is amazing. That's so amazing. I think I remember Del and Farouk going to New York for like 3 months and doing the whole Broadway.
I think I remember something.
And that must obviously at a different time, but it's so nice because it sounds like the community is a bit more maybe open, would you say?
Oh, hey,
sort
Carly.
of
I was like...
in New York. I love it. I love you've got all these peeps. So you decided to move. Did you sort of, what I'd love to know, and I guess the viewers would love to know, is how the kind of process for auditioning, casting, like, do you have to be on, is there a spotlight equivalent? How easy is it for you as a Brit abroad type thing? Take us through all of that.
Okay, so it's so funny because it's actually been like a long time. I was talking to a friend about it. I'm like, it's been such a long time since I've auditioned in London. I've kind of forgotten how it is there. Not really, but you know, I feel like there's a lot of opportunity in New York. Obviously not now, but they have a lot of open calls, and as much as it definitely helps having an agent, I feel like you can still kind of like get in with you can go to an open call. So with Equity here, the union, for Broadway shows, they have to have an open call. I think it's every 6 months. So anyone can go and audition, which is great. They might not be looking for people at that time, but at least they can get you on the books, and they have to do it. So that's one good thing. I think it definitely helps having an agent and gets you in the door. And I mean, obviously having an agent is the way to go, but there are options.
So how long did it take you then before sort of doing all these open calls and auditions? Like, did it take you a while to get a job or get an agent or find your feet?
Again, I was very lucky. Well, I think also coming to New York with a resume already, because I'd worked in the West End for 6 years at that point. So I wasn't coming in fresh with nothing. And I think that definitely helps. So coming with a resume, I also had contacts there because I knew a choreographer, Andy, who choreographed Hamilton and In the Heights. I did Desperately Seeking Susan with him in London, so I knew him. So I actually was very lucky again that I got my first job a few months after I moved. I got the In the Heights national tour, and it was the non-equity tour. So it's different from back home, whereas in London you don't have to be part of the union, so everything is the same. Like there's not like you don't have to be part of the union, so everything is a union contract, but
right.
that's that. In America, you have to be part of the union. So there's non-union and there's union. So you have to work a certain amount of jobs to build points, they call them. Thanks, Carly. So yeah, you have to build a certain amount of points to become equity, or you can be very lucky and you can go to an open call and then you can just book an equity job and then you become equity. If you are not equity, then you're non-equity, and they have separate jobs. Some tours will be non-equity. And so the problem with that is obviously you're not under the same protection with a union and you don't get paid as much. So the big thing for me, and this is where I was not so lucky, this is where it actually really sucked, was because I was on an artist visa and I wasn't on a green card. So like you have an artist visa and then a step up would be a green card. I wasn't allowed to join the union, even though legally I could work in America and everything. The union were like, if you don't have a green card, you can't join. So that really like inhibited me for the first 5 years that I was in America.
That long?
Yeah.
Gosh.
No, was it 5 years? It was, hang on, let me think. When did I do Tuck Everlasting? 2016. Yeah, I would say maybe it was like 4 years. Okay, let's go with that. So basically I couldn't join the union, which meant I couldn't do Broadway and I couldn't do union tours, which paid really well. So I got jobs, but I mean the pay was really not great. So it was a bit of a struggle for a long time. Many years I would have to work multiple jobs, and it was difficult. But I did get my first tour a few months in, and it was In the Heights, which was like my dream job. I'd been like dying to do that. I'd seen it. I saw it when I first came to New York on Broadway, and I mean, I was just in love with it. And then I came back and I actually did On the Town again, but in Paris, which was amazing.
Oh,
yeah, it was like that was a dream job. But I mean, I listened to that show all the time and everyone was so over me because all I talk about is In the Heights all the time. So the fact that I got to do it was a dream, and it was really it was great. I mean, touring non-equity was rough. However, I met my husband when I was in Toronto on tour, so there you go. That was a good thing that came out of it.
Stop it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's that.
That's that. So obviously you knew this was, you'd have to probably wait a few years before you could get onto Broadway. Did you feel like you could maybe get a few jobs in the meantime, or you were happy to sort of wait that time before you made your Broadway debut?
So happy, no. I was frustrated because of the green card situation. So once I came here with my my artist visa, I then had to like keep getting jobs so that I could build up a portfolio to apply for a green card. So once I applied for my green card, I finally got that, and that it really helped everything, because then obviously I could go for what I came to New York to do. However, I would say it was a solid year before I finally got my before I got my Broadway show. It was literally a year of no. I was, it's also a thing of being new as an equity person. So, and I could join equity straight away because I was equity back home in London. So that's how I joined straight away, because otherwise you would have to either go to open calls and get a show, or you would have to build up these points, they call them. So that I was lucky then, because I could just go to the calls that were equity. So yeah, it was basically a year of no's, which was really rough. I remember like my boyfriend at the time, I remember one time I was with him on the street and I got a call from my agent. It was like another no, and I just like burst out crying in the middle of the street. I was
Oh,
just like,
God.
how many no's? Because it was just, I was doing really well. I kept getting to the final, but I was just like, how many no's can I get? This is killing me.
So what,
Yeah,
that's really,
Kyle,
I mean,
Kyle
it
just
does.
reminded me. I had like 3 or 4 finals in a week, and you're just like, okay, I'm gonna get one of them. Like, I don't know which one I'll get, but I'll get. You're like, I'll get one of them, and I got none, and I was just like, yeah, but it worked out. It's fine.
So what kind of got you through that moment? Maybe Carl, but was there anything that kind of you hung on to?
I think it was
you
like,
just thought,
I'm very determined, and I think it was like pure determination. Like, I think I always have my eyes set on a goal, and once I have that goal, then I'm gonna do it. So I think originally, before I moved to New York, my goal was get my green card and, not get my green card, get my artist visa. And that's kind of how my friend forced me to go to a So You Think You Can Dance audition. I did not want to go to the audition at all. I had no desire. I was like, this is not my thing. I'm not going to do it. And my friend forced me. She literally was like, I'm going, you're coming with me. She dragged me to, I think we went to Scotland. We went somewhere because I think we ended up staying with my friend in Scotland. I can't even remember. Anyway, we went somewhere that she dragged me, and she basically was like, Chloe, just go, because even if you don't get far, you might get somewhere that you could get, because you have to like build up, you need articles written about you and things like that to apply for a visa. You have to show you're like in the top 5% of performers or whatever. So you basically need all this proof. So basically I was like, okay, fine, I'll go, like maybe I'll get somewhere. I was not prepared at all, not expecting to get on the show, not expecting to be doing the live, like it was nuts. But yeah, anyway, so I've gone on such a tangent.
No, but I love it because all of this is really, really interesting, because I don't know your journey.
Yeah.
I just see snippets on social media, and it is, I think people forget, they can see the highlight reel and they forget the hard graft that you're doing.
Yeah.
It's not just the years of training since you were young and then going through college and then auditioning. It's all of these things, and it's putting yourself in, and it's someone forcing you in that situation that actually you might not have gone down that route, but you wouldn't have got your artist visa, and that wouldn't have taken you down this.
Exactly,
so it's great to hear that you've had, it actually was a means to an end. And also, so how was that TV experience? So for anyone that's watching, So You Think You Can Dance is a reality TV show about dancers. I mean, we all know what it is now because it's so big, but this was, starting out when you joined. It's the UK version.
It was it was an interesting experience. I hate talking about it because I just like,
okay,
no, it's totally fine, we can talk about it. It was a long time ago, I'll get over it, but it was just like, it was just weird. It was just a little weird, but a few of my friends did it with me, and so that was like so fun because we all knew each other. And I mean, it got me my green card, it got me my artist visa, it truly helped me, and I'm so happy for that. But yeah, it was just a very random experience. And I think like for me as well, I just always like, I never had the best body positive image of myself anyway, because I'm not like a super skinny, stick dancer. So I think I always just like, there's always things where you're like, oh, how do I look on TV? And then I was kind of, I've always feel like I've never been like, I have technique, but I always feel like, oh, I'm more of like a performer than like technical dancer and stuff. And so I think it just like put all the things that I like hated about myself in like, and I really hadn't thought about it because I really didn't think I would get that far to be in to be like actually on live TV. So they kind of marketed me as like the one with the personality, but her technique's not great, or you know what I mean? So it just kind of like, I was like, I do have technique though, like I'm not, you know what I mean? And I was like, is it because I'm not like a stick thin skinny dancer who's like that they're like making me out to be that? And it was just like annoying.
Do you know what it is with TV? There's always needs to be a hook.
Yeah, of course.
They're creating a program, they're creating entertainment. So it's like, what do you have? This is why I never liked kind of do reality TV stuff, because you kind of had to sell a story and sell your soul. And even when we did end up doing a show in 2010, because we thought it'd be different, but it wasn't in the end. You know,
Yeah.
the people that won, you know, there was a man that had one lung, you know, and he's a singer, and you're like, well, that's a great story. And then there's like 6 orphans, so
Yeah.
you're just like, we're just 6 people that have trained all our lives and love to do it, want a break.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't work. So with that in mind, and how far you came with that, did that sort of open up opportunities back home?
Not
And
really,
if
actually.
no, it didn't.
No,
Okay.
it was, and that's where I feel like I've never been that person that like gets stuck. They're not. I feel like no one's ever like, oh, Chloe, because of this, or you know what I mean. I feel like I've just always had to work hard, and then I get to things because I work hard. But yeah, it didn't really help me in any way. It's not
any
like,
other way.
Chloe does so you think it does. We've got to use her.
Yeah.
All. But that's totally fine.
Yeah, because I mean, your journey could have been completely different if you'd stayed.
Yeah.
Couldn't
I
it?
literally am like, I don't even know what I'd be doing if I was in London. I have no idea. It's so bizarre. Yeah.
So let's go back to like the reality check of talent, because when you talk about Broadway stars and things like that, you always think triple threat. Everyone says the talent of everyone is up here, you know, whether they're working or not, or they just seem to have this work ethic, or so I hear, that's just a bit, you know, more than back home.
So I visited London when hang on. No, yeah, I visited when I was pregnant, but I didn't really see anyone. So this was the time before, it must have been a few years ago anyway. And I saw one of my teachers from Millennium. I went to Millennium, I think I taught like a workshop or something, and I was chatting to one of my teachers, and she was like, Chloe, you are so much more confident than you were. And it was just like, she could see a difference from me being in America for so long, I guess. And I definitely think there is a next level of, I feel like in the UK we apologize so much, or we never want to like say we're good at something, and you know what I mean. There's definitely like, oh, you know, I'm okay, I'm all right.
Yeah.
And I still feel like I'm like that. However, in America you kind of have to, or in New York, you gotta believe in yourself, and you have to push yourself, because no one's gonna do it for you, and there's way too much talent and there's way too much competition that you have to believe in yourself, or you just can't really get anywhere.
No, you probably just fade in the background.
Yeah, so I definitely think it pushes you to believe in yourself more and push yourself in ways that you wouldn't necessarily do normally.
Right. Okay. So were you just sort of like taking open classes and doing workshops with people? Was there any kind of specific route that you took to kind of catch up or build that confidence skill in yourself?
I think class really helped a lot. So when I was a student at Broadway Dance Center, I would say that really helped, like, I guess like change me in terms of performance and technique and all of that. I mean, I obviously had an amazing foundation from Millennium, and then I'd worked a lot, but it was, I guess, something about just believing in myself a little more than I did. And I definitely think it was open class. So when I was at Broadway Dance Center, you obviously pay like an amount to be this student, and then you have to do a certain amount of classes a week. So I mean, I was doing class every day, multiple classes a day, and you're surrounded by all this energy and all this talent that it just like pushes you. And I really feel like it excelled me in a way that I felt like I wasn't getting from being in London.
Right, that's really interesting. And it is, I think they say, you know, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So when you're in a creative environment, you do kind of, like you said, you feed off that energy.
Yeah, and that's not taking anything away from London, because there's like insanely, exceptionally talented people. And I mean, when I did Mary Poppins, that was my first 8 shows a week for a long time. And I felt like I just like learned so much from the way that, you know, everyone was performing in the ensemble as with On the Town. So I mean, I'm not taking away from like this insane talent there too. I just think like in open, like I feel like I didn't get that as much when I went to open class. I got that more on job. So I just think like there was like a difference in being like in open class in New York.
Yeah, so it's worth kind of taking the time and spending the money to keep sort of training and keeping yourself out
Yeah,
there and
I mean, you
seeing.
have to keep training. You can't stop. Once you stop, you're dead. Like, it's because everything's always evolving. And so, you know, doing a show now to a show 10 years ago, there's like different styles, there's different ways of, like, it's so different now that you can't just stay stagnant. You have to keep growing.
You'll miss out, won't you? Well, let's just go there with Hamilton. Like, hello, what is it like being such in a show that has had such an impact and is so iconic now? It's just, you know, the fan base. It's
cool. Like, it's really cool because I think apart from doing Mary Poppins, I'd never really done a show that was like very popular. You know, I'd done new shows, but they never really had like the insane following. Or like you could be like, oh, I did this show and everyone would know it. You know, I'd be like, oh, I did this show and people be like, oh, what show is that? You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, doing Hamilton, I mean, it was honestly like it is an incredible show. And when you get to perform it, you just learn there's so many layers and there's so much behind the choreography that you'll never really understand even just watching it. Once you learn it, you're like, oh, there's this, and oh, that, you know, there's so much to learn about. So I think that was like a really cool part of getting to do the show.
Gosh, and you've had some amazing kind of people come and see you, and I mean, it's just incredible, and it's the experience that you get from having a time in a show, the people you meet, you know, the journeys you go on. I did see it, and tell me if you don't want to talk about it. You did go on vocal rest for a bit.
Oh yeah, we can.
Oh, excuse me, she said.
Totally go there.
I think we should, because I mean, I had a guest. My friend Laura came on last week, and she, you know, is a cabaret singer and flies around the world, but she's the solo vocalist. And you are athletes, like whatever you're doing, you're working, you're using your body and using your voice. 8 shows a week. I mean, you have to practically live like a nun, you know, if you want to get through it. So let's talk us through a little bit about that and your experience with that, and maybe some advice for people who kind of would maybe not necessarily think that was a thing, because I know I didn't know that you could have a vocal injury. Like, although it should be common sense, but you don't focus on that. So when it happens, you're like, oh my God, you know, world over. So yeah, what kind of advice, like, take us through your experience, and then if you've got any sort of tips for anyone.
Yeah, of course. So I actually ended up having a vocal hemorrhage.
Right.
Yeah. And then I ended up having vocal surgery on my cords. And yeah, it's actually like way more common than I think people know about, and people don't want to talk about it because it's kind of taboo, and they don't want to be seen as like they've had something happen to their cords. But after I'd had it done, or I knew about it, speaking to people, I was like, oh, like a lot of people have had this done. So basically I had to go on vocal rest a ton, and it wasn't really getting better. And so I was seeing a specialist at the time, and he recommended that it'd probably be best for me to have surgery. And so he like basically went in, and where I guess there had been a small hemorrhage, so like a blood vessel had burst kind of thing, he just had to like fold over the flap to kind of fix it and smooth it down. And then on the other side there was like a small little like bump, so he just like smoothed that out as well.
Wow.
But I think the main thing for me was actually like the aftercare. So for me, what was really important is I had to go to speech therapy, and I had to do that for quite a long time. And so I was just learning about where to place my voice even when I'm speaking, because I think, you know, a lot of the time I've always been like a bit of a loudmouth, and so I don't think I necessarily like placed my I speak a lot in the back of my throat, and so I think speaking like that or shouting like that, you have to know where to place your voice. So that was like a massive lesson for me to learn. And then obviously, you know, doing singing classes and working on my technique and where I need to place things and all of that kind of thing. But I think it's something I'd always had slight issues when I did Mary Poppins, because that was my first 8 shows a week. I actually lost my voice a bit, and then I went to singing lessons and it was fine. But I think it's just something that I'd never really taken seriously or realized, and I didn't know about going to speech therapy or anything. Hang on, the little one's just been sick.
Oh.
What's happening today, Campbell? Yeah, so that was that was like a massive lesson for me to learn, just about placement. And so there's different exercises that I had to do to help with that, and I think it's like definitely helped a lot, but I just have to like keep an eye on it.
And so were you did you have to leave a show at that point, or did you have some time?
No,
they
were amazing. They gave me time off, so I got a doctor's notes basically saying that I needed to be off the show. So I was off the show. Over here we have, it's called workers' compensation, so it's like insurance covers it. So if you need to be off the show, you need to be off the show. But I didn't lose pay or anything because it was all covered with insurance.
That's really good.
Which is amazing, and
especially being in America.
And it was really good to feel like I was looked after, and that's where like being in the union and being, you know, looked after, it's nice to know that you're not going to just be like dumped and left on the side while you have to recover from something that is not really your fault. It's through working through a show. So that was really helpful.
I think it's really good that people are open and honest about their vocal journeys, or, you know, their any physical injuries you have, because, you know, you're an athlete, you're working all the time, and like you said, you have to stay in training, you have to be doing this all the time. So it's imperative that you learn about how to what works for you and what doesn't. I guess you've got certain, you know, warm up and cool downs. You've got certain areas in our body and our vocal that might be weaker or stronger than others, and everyone's different. So
and I actually also think that stress had a lot to do with it, because I was a swing in Hamilton, and it was like a weird, you know, I moved to Chicago because I did the original cast in Chicago. So I moved to Chicago, and it was just like a very stressful situation. And so I got really bad acid reflux, which I never had before. So I think like all these things kind of like culminated in this happening, you know, which is also like a lesson to be learned too. Because I just think I didn't really understand all of those things that can be involved in something like that. So I just think it was like a culmination of stress, and then acid reflux, which was probably because of the stress, which caused my voice to do things that, you know.
And I think that's really good to highlight, because again, especially a lot of the audience on here are generally young people starting out, thinking about going to drama school, and, you know, you see the big picture and you're like, oh, the dream is West End and Broadway. But it is kind of learning, if we can, I mean, my passion is to give as much information and these younger people the tools and information that we didn't necessarily have, you know, and we had to go through all the hard ups and downs. So now hopefully this will just help pave the way a little bit to make their life a bit easier.
It's also important for younger people to understand that there are going to be lots of ups and downs, you know, and it's not all like plain sailing, but having those downs is what helps you become better. Like, I'm so happy that I went through these things, you know, like having the vocal surgery, it was like terrible and stressful and, you know, all of that. However, I'm glad I went through it, because now I feel in a better place with my vocal technique. And I also had hip surgery after I did the In the Heights tour. And I was out. I was out for 8 months after that. That was like a very low.
That's tough.
That was a very low point, because I was on an artist visa, which meant I couldn't get a normal job. I was only allowed to work as a performer, and I couldn't work as a performer because I'd had hip surgery. So I mean, I was babysitting, and like it was a terrible time. However, that I'm glad I went through that, because then it made me a stronger dancer. I had to go to loads of physical therapy, and it made me understand my body more. And I just think, I remember being at college, and sometimes people would get injured and they'd be out, and you know, they'd be like moaning or complaining or not happy about it, and it does suck, but it's an opportunity to like understand your body more. And I think also we need to realize that it's normal, that, you know, we're not all made to do all these things, and so it's normal to get injured or have something happen, and it shouldn't be this taboo thing, but like learn how to strengthen yourself out of that, you know.
Yeah, 100%. And you grow so much mentally, and as like you said, as a person. And this industry does take resilience. It takes, you know, you've got to go at it. You've got to go at it. You've got to be quite hard. You've got to be quite you've got to be hard. You've got to be driven. You've got to be focused. And hard, I mean, not necessarily as a person, but just thick-skinned and realistic, that there are going to be these ups and downs, that there are going to be lots of no's, as you say.
Yeah.
So in terms of, so I'm just going to touch on Tuck Everlasting a little bit, and then I'll just ask for some tips and advice for our viewers, and then I'll leave you with your lovely family. So Tuck Everlasting was quite a big deal, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was my Broadway debut.
It's your Broadway debut. And then it closed rather quickly as well, didn't it?
I literally was like,
oh,
I feel like that was the story of my life. The same thing happened with Desperately Seeking Susan. Is, you know, it was like original cast, and I sang a bit of a duet with one of the leads, and I was like, oh, this would be so exciting to do an album, and I'll be singing on it and everything, and that never happened, and it closed after a night. And then like the same thing happened with Tuck Everlasting. But it honestly was like such a dream debut, just because the cast was so lovely. It was just such a wonderful experience, that, and I mean, I'm used to things closing, you know. I'm not like, oh, I'm so sad that, I mean, I was sad that it didn't last, but that's just part of being a performer, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And you know, there's other opportunities coming your way.
And I was so lucky that Hamilton was auditioning at the time, and I actually thought I wouldn't have been able to audition for it, because I was in Tuck
in the show.
And then as soon as kind of rumors started that Tuck might be closing, I was like, my agent, I was like, I need to get me an audition, I need to go in for Hamilton. And I was like, I feel like this is going to close, and like, I don't want to miss this opportunity. So it ended up actually working very well for me, that I could go in, you know, I ended up going straight into Hamilton. But I mean, yeah, Tuck was just like such a dream job, just in terms of the people, so lovely. And yeah, it was a really good show. It just was, it's yeah, Carl said it's bad timing. It is just a timing thing. It opened the same year as Hamilton, and everything, you know, everything was like about Hamilton. And then oh yeah, there was like The Color Purple, and then also Finding Neverland was open at that time. And even though they were nothing alike, it was like another kind of kids show, like, and so I just think it just didn't get the following. It was such a shame. It was such a beautiful show.
I wonder if it will come to the UK at some point.
I don't know. I feel like it's I mean, I wish it would, but I feel like it's one of those things.
It'd be lovely to see. Yeah. And then King Kong.
Yeah.
This happened. That was insane. Yeah. I mean, the stage must have been incredibly huge, like, for that set.
Yeah, Campbell's. She every wire in sight she wants.
She's on it.
She's on the move. She's crawling. King Kong was incredible. The people, it was such, again, just like the most wonderful people. It was just a great company, and it was just such a lovely working environment. I loved going to work. The puppet was like unbelievable. It was so cool. I'll never forget the first time we saw that puppet. We were just like, whoa. And I mean, we lasted nearly a year, I think, which was like, I don't think we thought we'd last that long, because we got terrible reviews. But we did all right, and I've made like some lifelong friends. And again, I got to like be in a Broadway show. I mean, I was like, I get to be in a Broadway show. So cool.
Yeah, really, really exciting. So, where you are at the moment, obviously you've had a little bit of time out to have your gorgeous girl, and obviously we're in a pandemic, which is so what kind of are the plans going forward, if you have any? What are they, and how do you think Broadway's gonna come back? Like, what do you think is going to be the differences now?
It's a weird one. It's just like a really sad time kind of for everyone. I feel very lucky in a way that I had my baby at this time, because obviously I was pregnant before this happened, so I wasn't expecting that, and I had like massive anxiety about having a baby and trying to get back to audition ready and trying to get work, and how would I figure that out with someone looking after the baby, you know, all of that stuff. It was just like I would have sleepless nights about it, honestly, because it's like just so much to think about, and there's so much pressure on women to just like bounce back and be, you know, ready, and then you're like trying to compete with all these incredible young dancers. You're just like, so for me it's been like a massive relief that I just haven't had to jump back into it, so it's been really nice. And the UK, I don't think, has dealt with performers as well as here has, surprisingly. I feel like we've been pretty well looked after just in terms of unemployment benefits, and I feel like the UK has not looked after performers at all, which is just so sad and infuriating. So yeah, it's definitely like, you know, it's made me not freak out in a way, and I've had something to focus on, because I just feel like it's a really hard time for performers right now, because, you know, we're used to being like in that energy and like surrounded by other people, and it's really hard. People are trying to, you know, take class in their apartments, but firstly, no one has any space in New York apartments. And it's just like hard to motivate yourself when you're dancing on your own. Like, you need that energy of other people. So yeah, it's a really hard time. I feel lucky that I have Campbell to focus on. And like, honestly, I don't know how it's gonna come back. I feel like it's still gonna be a long time. I have friends that are in Broadway shows, and I know that producers were talking about September, but I guess it all just depends on people being vaccinated. So I feel like that's the only way people can get back to work.
So are you sticking with the musical theatre kind of route for a while, or do you have any like plans to go anywhere?
Musical theatre has always been the thing I love the most, and I just like get joy out of it, and I feel like it's where I fit in the best. I have actually been lucky enough to have a job. I've been hosting this quiz show for this company called PwC. So yeah, I've been lucky that I've been working just once a week. I go in, it's on a green screen, and then I have a teleprompter, and like we go live to the UK actually. So yeah, I really like doing that, hosting. It's really fun. Yeah. So who knows? I kind of am very much, I always go with the flow. I kind of don't necessarily have a plan. I just kind of see what happens. I guess that, I think that's the best way to be. Because if you try and like plan out everything, firstly, it never works out how you plan it. And secondly, I think you're then closing yourself off to like opportunities you never even thought could be possible, you know?
Yeah, and you set yourself up for disappointment as well, I think, as if you set the expectation up. But that's really good advice. So what kind of, I've got two separate questions that are very similar. The first one being, what would your 3 pieces of advice be for people starting out in the UK, because obviously the majority of my followers are UK based, and then what 3 pieces of advice would you give to people that would possibly want to make the transition like you did?
Okay. So firstly, advice for people in the UK is, I think you have to be extremely determined, because you're going to hear a ton of no's. So I think you have to be okay with that. And that is really hard and not for everyone. And I know people that like stopped, you know, pursuing that because it's really hard. Incredible performers. So I think you have to like just be determined and get a thick skin. What else would be my advice? I also think it's really important to know what your strengths are. because, you know, everyone has different strengths. So I think it's really important to like know what your niche is and know what your strengths are and what you can like build yourself towards, because I spent way too much of my time comparing myself to other people. And I think once I like finally, I mean, it's only recently that I finally stopped doing that, but once you stop doing that and you go on your own path, rather than like, you know, you're not going to get everything, and you're not going to get something that your friend gets, because you're different people. And so if you constantly like, oh, I didn't get that because I'm not this, and okay, well, I'm not that, but I am this. And I think I wish I'd have realized that a lot sooner when I was a lot younger, because I have my strengths and I have my talent to give, and I don't look like X, Y, and Z. Oh yeah, she's fine. So I was like, what's she doing? Yeah, so I just think it's like really important to realize what you have and what you can give. And then I guess third piece of advice would be to not limit yourself, and just try and dip your toes into as much as you can, especially now while we have the time to kind of like gain more knowledge on things, because the more you know, the better. So the more dance styles you know, the more vocal styles you know, it's only going to help you and not hinder you. You know, I remember when I did Desperately Seeking Susan, in the final, we had to go in a circle and everyone had to freestyle. Now, I loved freestyle because I did a lot of hip hop. So I was like totally ready for that and excited for that. However, most people at that time especially were like freaking out because they were all musical theatre and they didn't know how to freestyle. So, you know, now would be a good time to like take some hip hop classes. You can literally go anywhere in the world and take a hip hop class because everything's online now. So you can, you know, people in the UK can take all the classes in America, which you would never get to do, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I think that is, I mean, also there's like amazing hip hop in London. In fact, the best hip hop in London. So yeah, I think that's like really important, is just kind of like broaden your horizon. So obviously like know what your strengths are, but don't you know, neglect
the other areas. Absolutely. And then for people wanting to, when things open up a bit more and we have more opportunity to travel, what would be your bit of advice for them?
Well, if you really want to move to New York, firstly, I suggest that you should come here and understand how it works here. It's very different. And I think some people are like, I want to be in New York, I want to work in New York. And I'm like, but do you know what the competition is like? Do you know what you're up against? I think a lot of people are just like, you know, but I think you need to come here and see what you're up against, because it is another level, and it's hard. It's really, really, really hard. So I think you need to be prepared and know what your competition is. I guess that would be like my main thing. And two, you're going to need some serious savings because it's very expensive here. And that is important. And I like that as well. Number three.
Did you know anyone when you came out?
Yeah, I was just going to say, actually, it's do as much networking as you can, especially in New York. I think compared to London, it's very much on networking. It's like very much who you know. I was lucky because I'd done some shows that had Americans involved in some way. I knew a few people, so I had someone to stay with when I first moved. And I knew a choreographer, so I think networking is super important, and just like email as many people as you can. And I think that's like a massive difference between America and England, is that in England I would never even dream of like emailing people and being like, hey, what are you up to, what are you doing, this is what I'm doing. Whereas in America, people do that all the time. They're like, oh, you need to email that person, oh, you need to get in touch. And I'm like, really? But I feel like people don't mind it as much here because it's networking, so they kind of expect it. And I think if you're not in their minds, they're just going to forget you. So you have to kind of like tell people you're around and you're doing stuff, because they're like, oh yeah, that person, I could use her for this. And that's surprising. Like, I feel like I don't really do that anymore, but when I first moved, I was doing that, and it was crazy like how many opportunities kind of come your way, because you're like, oh hi, I'm around, or I'm doing this, or I'm back in America, back in New York, blah, 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 you know. So I think that
this is great. Thank you. I think we've got a question. I'm going to see if this works. Yes. How did you realize your strengths and talents? And did you ask teachers and close friends? That is from Mel Burke, Missouri.
Oh, Mel, how did you what? Say that again.
How did you realize your strengths and talents? So I think when you were talking about knowing your niche and what you do best, and did you ask teachers and close friends?
I don't think I ever really asked anyone what my talent, like what, I just think I knew, like when I was in class, I think this is a time when you should like watch other people and compare yourself and stuff, because you learn a lot from other people. But I knew, okay, for example, I know I'm a dynamic dancer, so I know that a strength of mine is like sharpness and things like that. I know I am not great at like, you know, doing an adage and giving a leg, you know, although I can kick my leg, but I can't, you know. I also personally think that I am like, I act first, so like I understand that I can engage with an audience through my facial expressions, you know. So I know that that's a strength of mine. I know aesthetically wise that my hair is makes me stand out, so I'll always like have my hair down or something in audition, because I know that will be like, oh, that person, you know what I mean, things like that. I know that I'm good. Well, I used to be good at freestyling, so I know that
you probably are.
Like, I don't know about anymore, but I was. So I know that's a strength of mine. I know like a strength of mine within musical theatre, not in like the commercial world, but within musical theatre, I know I'm like better at I'm good at hip hop, and so I know I can do that. I know that so I think it's things like that.
And Mel says take the
in a way that isn't self-deprecating. Yes, exactly. Yes.
Like,
so
I don't do this, but exactly.
So, like,
be realistic. I
there's
think
like definitely things that I know I'm not good at. I'm not a soprano. I'm never going to be able to give you that. I can't riff my face off. I'm not going to be able to do that. But what can I do singing wise? I know I have like a strong belt, so I like work on my strong belt. So yeah, I think it's just like knowing what you what you can can bring to the table.
That's so good. It's really, really good. Are the auditions different at all? Do they require any? Girls taking notes. I love it. How different is it to the UK? Like, do you get given your 16 bars? Do you get material, or do you have your rep book and stuff set?
Firstly, I don't know how it is now, because when I came from London, we would just like tape our pieces of paper together and
music,
go like this.
Yes.
I mean, the first time I did that in New York, when I first came, they were like, absolutely not. That you would never ever in your life turn up at an audition with your music all taped together. They would kill you. Everyone has
my God, okay.
a book. You have a folder, and in your folder you have it all. It would all be in like sheets, the plastic sheets, and you have it like that, so the pianist can just flip the page. You would never ever tape it up so it can get lost. No way. That would like, people would laugh at you if you walked in the room with that for a start. Secondly, they are extremely strict with like the 12 bar cuts, 16 bar cuts, whatever bar cuts it is. So you would normally have like a 12 bar cut and maybe a 32 bar cut. And it's like non-glare plastic sheets. They're like very specific on all that stuff. And a lot of people would have it organized in their book. So you have it in terms of like 60s pop, you know, like contemporary musical theatre, Rodgers and Hammerstein. So you have it all there. So you have all the sections, so that if you go in and they're like, oh, do you have something else? Do you actually have something that shows your soprano voice? Or do you have something? You're like, yeah, okay. And then you just go straight to it and it's there. Like, it's so different from how it was. I obviously can't speak because that was 10 years ago, but how it was in London. They're like extremely on it. So that was a massive shock for me.
Yeah. Oh God, I can imagine, because it takes a lot. And also for people watching, you know, try and get your rep sorted whilst you're at drama school, because
Yeah,
I mean, it will change as you get older.
I did that. I still haven't really done that. It's always on my, like, I'm always like,
and it's always a stress, isn't it, when you don't have I mean, if you have like 5 to 10 key songs that cover a multitude of genres or character song or whatever, if you have some really core pieces, and especially if you know them at college, then they're going to stay with you for a very long time, and you're going to feel really comfortable. But the amount of auditions, but it's like, I haven't got honestly, like a 60s.
I would say just get it done while you're at college. Just get it done.
Yeah.
It sucks because there's so many songs, you don't know where to start. You're like, what suits my voice? What doesn't suit my voice? But like, while you have the time at college, or while you have the time in a pandemic, get it sorted out. It's so important.
This is amazing. Well, thank you so much, Chloe, for your time. I really appreciate it. And it's so good to see you after like decades.
Campbell, do you want to say hi?
And yes, please.
Campbell, do you want to say hi?
Campbell.
She's teething, so she's got her toothbrush.
Oh.
There's Campbell.
Hello.
Say hi.
Hello, gorgeous. Oh, look at you.
This is what's been keeping me busy these days.
Oh, you're so welcome, Mel. It's great to have you guys on. Thank you so much for watching. And I think it's good, because I think listening to you and your story, it just really inspires people if they maybe are at that point where they're just like, oh, I don't know if I can take any more, or when is it going to happen? You know, the fact that you've had this drive and ambition, and I think you probably always knew. You just knew that it was in you, and that's something that you had to achieve. So you know, that fire.
I mean, it is hard. I have been through, like, so I've been, you know, there's been times before I got married, I was working 3 different jobs, trying to make ends meet. I was so poor, but you just keep going. Like, and it makes you a better performer when you go through those things. When you go through hard times, you put that into your performance when you're performing. And
100%.
if you don't have those experiences, then how can you make an audience feel something, because you have nothing to connect with?
Exactly. I love it. And now you've got this new journey that you're on, motherhood. And
it feels like a dream. I was chatting to Kyle about it. I was like, I can't even remember being pregnant or giving birth or anything, because we've been in this pandemic. I'm just like, what? It's so weird. But
it's so crazy, isn't it? And it's so good to, hello, darling. Oh, you're so gorgeous. Look at you. You are so gorgeous. But thank you so much. Thank you for everyone. Thank you for your question, Mel. I'm so glad it helped. Chloe's very inspiring.
Yeah,
and I'm so pleased that you.
He's like the most incredible. He's an amazing performer.
Oh, but it just shows you, doesn't it, that people that we, you know, young people might deem as successful, and having had those experiences, still, you know, want to learn and want to grow and have things that they want to work on. And it's you know, it's really inspiring, and it's so good to talk to you after so long. I'm irresistible. I mean, I just remember that like it was yesterday. So guys, I've got a VHS somewhere of Chloe. I'm sure I have.
I want it. I can't even remember those.
I've got all like the culture shock stuff in the garage, but you know, when you think, is it even going to work? I don't even have a video player.
Oh, you have to send me those if you see them.
Yeah, I'd love to. It's amazing to talk to you. Keep in touch.
I will.
And I'm sure everyone's absolutely loved it. Goodbye, Campbell. Lots of love. Love to all the family.
Bye.
And thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Take care.
Bye.